Okay, so we had a look at how the question works, how the exam paper's laid out, and we talked about exploding the question, how does JB create mood and atmosphere? We're talking about the mood or atmosphere that is created. Okay, the other bit that we need to look at is this part of how. Okay, so with an Inspector Calls as it's a play, there are 2 or 3 things that you're always going to be able to talk about, and those are the way that people talk, so speech of a character, what they say and how they say it, actions, so what they do, and stage directions. Now, actions and stage directions may be the same thing. Okay, those actions may be referred to in the stage directions. But if you remember SAS, speech, actions, stage directions, you won't go too far wrong. So let's have a look. What have we got? Well, first up we've got some stage directions. Burling lights his cigar, and Gerald, who has lit a cigarette, helps himself to port. So we might bring this out. Might bring this out to that full kind of line, because what we've got there is this sense of sort of comfortable situation for 2 of them. They seem at ease, they seem to be enjoying each other's company and quite relaxed. So plenty there that we can use. If we carry on through, and very often actually, you know, it's worth looking for something in that first line, because the examiners have been quite careful about how they choose these extracts. If there isn't something in the first couple of lines, those first couple of lines probably won't be there. They might start later on down here. So have a look at the first couple of lines. Also not a bad idea to have a look at the last line or 2. That's not on here. I'll leave that up to you to have a look at. I'm just going to track through looking for 3 or 4 moments that I can talk about which create this sense of mood or atmosphere. Now I'm definitely going to talk about Gerald rather embarrassed. Again, stage direction. Begins to murmur some dissent, so that means he's saying things like no, 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 not at all. Okay, but there's a change of atmosphere from this relaxed moment to Burling just getting it a bit wrong and causing Gerald to be embarrassed. Then we've got this idea of sort of smug, self-satisfied air about things, with Burling talking about his situation. I was Lord Mayor here 2 years ago when royalty visited us. He's quite proud of his situation. And we've got this other stage direction, laughs complacently. If you're complacent, it means you take things for granted. You're not worried about anything. You're not anxious at all. So this is quite ironic here, because we know from the bit that we've read together in class, we know that there is going to be a bit of a scandal, and Burling laughs complacently. He's being incredibly smug. That smugness kind of carries on. Gerald, I think you might as well accept my congratulations now. So what we've got is some speech here that continues this comfortable, smug atmosphere. And then we would want to look at the way that Eric's entrance changes the atmosphere. What's the joke? Started telling stories. It's a bit awkward, and that awkwardness reaches a peak when he has to kind of check himself when he's about to tell the story about presumably being with a woman, remembering about how much they like clothes. So that's the first half of the extract, and we've got a good spread of details that we can talk about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's probably slightly more than enough. And we're just going to, when we write up, we're going to just choose which ones we use to talk about smugness. And then actually writing up, we want to keep things very straightforward. Now you need to remember that you've only got 20 minutes on this. So the timing we suggest is about 7 minutes or so to read and highlight and annotate, and then 13 minutes or so to be writing up your answer. So you've got to be pretty slick. What I would suggest doing is signposting to the reader where we're looking. So in the first few lines, if we go back to the question, this is how. So what techniques does J.B. Priestley use? In the first few lines, Priestley uses stage directions to show how at ease Burling and Gerald are. Then we would just drop in the quote. Burling lights his cigar. And Gerald. Right, I don't need all of that quote. I'm not going to say he has lit a cigarette. The important thing is he helps himself to port, which shows that he feels very kind of at home. So, because I'm missing out a few words, I'm going to use ... helps himself to port. And that's fine to do as long as you don't change the meaning by missing out the words. And this quote doesn't change its meaning. It shows that both of the men are quite at ease. Are comfortable in each other's company. Now, as we said, we'd expect some changes, not to be smug and comfortable the whole time. So we might point out this changes a few lines later. So I'm still pointing the reader where to look. This changes a few lines later when Burling mentions Gerald and Sheila's engagement. Leaving Gerald. So what I'm trying to do is make the quote part of the sentence, what we call embedding, making Gerald rather embarrassed. Okay, again that was stage directions. So here the stage directions are used to, stage directions are used to show that Mr. Burling is awkward and sometimes says the wrong thing. Here about Gerald's family being disappointed with his match with Sheila. So it's what would have been called a bad match for Gerald. So if we just have a look at what we've actually got here, good idea to point the reader where to look. Okay. It doesn't need to be really precise, just needs to give them a reasonable idea of where to look. Then we want to talk about the techniques being used, because it's a how question. So here we go, stage directions, stage directions. Those are the techniques being used. We want to embed quotations, which means make them part of the sentence. We've done that here. That shows, here we are, the quote is embedded. And finally, we need to talk about the actual mood or atmosphere created. Comfortable. Awkward. Okay, so there we go. You know, that would be 2 good points made so far. We recommend 7 to 8, and we should be hitting the sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10, depending on the quality of those 7 or 8. You don't need to make 10 points to get the 10 marks. 7 to 8 is the key number. Okay, so now it's over to you. You've got an example of what the answer should look like. We've done the first half kind of together. All right, it's over to you, using the time we've got left to continue our answer. All right, good luck.